Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 6 on Open Discourse. Today, we're talking about quite a few things: roommates, living with other people, different aspects of when you move out and how you move out. So, kind of a different topic, I think, but I think it'll be a good one, nevertheless. And we're also trying something new. We've got 2 guest hosts with us tonight. We'll let them introduce themselves. Who wants to go first?
All right, my name's Corine Witte. I am 20 years old. My education background is I'm currently in nursing school on my 2nd year. As far as religion, I can't really categorize myself into anything. I believe in God, but I also have a lot of struggles in my beliefs. And as far as politics, I don't really care a whole lot about it. So I guess I just have some opinions, but I don't really have any stands on that either.
And your...
Yes, this is my fiance.
Yep, we are engaged.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, try not to sound so excited. I'm Amber. I am 29. I completed high school and then went straight into banking, where I've been for 11 years now. I am a Christian and politically lean toward conservative views. However, there are quite a few things that I don't agree with. And I'm also Dylan's cousin.
So, as similar to most of the guests we've had on before, you both have really open political views, and that just seems to be the norm. So we're just going to keep with that trend. So once we have a person on and they're just like, I'm a Democrat or I'm a Republican,
hardcore either way.
I would be shocked.
Yeah, I'd love to talk to a person like that.
Exactly.
Get a communist in here.
You can talk to Jake.
What is Jake?
Jake is hardcore conservative. There's nothing...
We'll have him on.
Okay.
Next guest host.
We'll
Hardcore.
So the poll for this week, the question was, would you rather live with a messy roommate or a roommate who is always having people you don't know over? And the majority voted, 78% said they would prefer a messy roommate, and 22% went with a party roommate. I voted on the poll, and so did everybody else here, and 3 of us said we would rather have a party roommate, and Nick was the sole person who said he would rather have a messy roommate. And I think that comes from having a messy roommate, because once you have one, you're like, okay, I never want to experience that again. Like, I would definitely prefer.
I think more of it is because Nick himself is kind of a messy person, so messy roommate, messy person go together.
See, I have messy roommates, and have messy roommates, and for me, it was like I would rather just deal with one person than deal with, like, with your party roommate. He's bringing people over, like, you're probably pissed at your roommate, and maybe the person who just ate the last of your, like, frosted donuts, you know what I mean? So.
True. Very true.
I think there's also a thin line between messy and dirty.
I agree with you. Like, I think there's one thing to have, like, dirty dishes with food random places and, like, maybe some dirty laundry on the floor.
Or even in the sink rather than random places.
Yeah.
I might be able to handle that a little bit better.
So I'm sometimes the person that will stack the dishes constantly in the dish, the sink, because I'm tired of being the one that has to always put them in the dishwasher or wash them. So sometimes my dishes piling up in the sink is more of a protest.
It seems like there's always somebody who's the cleaner of the 2 roommates,
yeah.
and then they end up just doing the majority of the work, and they're just like, somebody has to clean this, and I can't stand it, so...
It's funny when Jake will finally break down, and I'll watch him because he's like, this is disgusting. This is disgusting. I'm like, well, maybe you shouldn't have let it get that bad. I'm like, I shouldn't, I don't believe in the whole, like, women doing, all the house cleaning stuff. So I'm a firm believer of, well, we each work our 40 hours. So you can pick up some of the dishes. I can pick up some of the dishes.
Share the chores of the house.
As long as we're a team about it.
For sure.
So, I mean, do you guys kind of have, like, these are your chores and those are his chores, or do you equally share every chore?
No, it usually is like, sometimes it unfortunately comes to a pretty bad point, like we're using the same towel for, more than 3 days in a row, because I'm like, screw this, I washed towels last time and folded the son of a bitch, so I'm not doing it again. And then Jake will have this thing where he's like, we need to do the laundry and we need to do the dishes. And at that point, the little wrath of Amber comes out, and I'm just like, oh, we? Because I feel like that we is more directed at, you need to do the dishes or you need to do the laundry. So that is something that we're still trying to figure out with each other, every day. And I'm trying to not rip his head off whenever he tells me that we need to do the dishes, because I'm pretty sure I know what that's code for.
See, personally, I think, like, for us, Nick and I, it is a we thing for the most part.
Like, we do things together.
At least we try.
That's so good, though. Like,
That
you'll
is
wash
good.
and you'll dry kind of thing?
Sometimes. But we are bad at stacking the dishes up, and I think that's more of a time thing rather than...
You guys have
We're both in school.
crazy schedules.
Yeah, we're pretty busy.
I do feel like, though, that we kind of, like, not with all chores, but there's, like, certain
Divide
things where, like, I do
Not
that
intentionally,
chore, or,
but-
like, she does it. Like, I'm
Yeah.
usually the trash and the grass, and she's
Dishes
Jake-
and laundry.
dishes,
Yeah,
laundry.
Jake, I agree. Jake does a lot more of the lawn work and a lot more of the trash. And he'll clean the bathroom for me because he knows that
I don't
not.
let Nick clean the bathroom because he's
Clean the
terrible at cleaning the
bathroom.
bathroom. It is not clean.
See, what I love is she'll get the trash to the back porch. It's
Oh,
like-
I do that sometimes, and he just
And then I
takes it
take it the rest
down
of the
and
way.
stuffs it in the can. See, that's teamwork.
It works.
So, Amber, how long have you and Jake lived together?
We have been, a year was in May. So we're going on 2 years, so a year and a half.
Is that about what we're on?
Yeah. It's
Okay.
pretty close.
So living together can be damaging to relationships. Have you guys, how is the adjustment of living together?
We've seen sides of each other. I think that I almost wasn't anticipated in each other, but we've also been able to, come home after a long day and just snuggle together on the couch, like you have that hard day and you're like, it's nice coming home to him of all people, so I really like that too.
I think you learn a lot about the other person, but you also learn a lot about yourself. Like even if you have like an angry fight, you go into the other room and you're like, wow, okay, that's who I am as a person. It's interesting.
And it's like some of me lashing out at him for like the dumbest, part of our cleaning, or like there's no toilet paper and I bought the toilet paper last time, it's your turn to buy the toilet paper. It's just, you're just learning all of these new things with another person. Do you guys do groceries together?
We actually just recently combined our accounts,
Oh, that's nice.
so
That's nice.
it's been easier, but we definitely did struggle with that for a while. Like, oh, who paid last time?
Yeah.
Whose
And it
turn
wasn't
is
like
it?
an awkward thing. It was more just like a hassle.
It
being
is
equal.
annoying. Like, who
'Cause
paid
we-
for dinner? Like we split the groceries 50-50, but it is like, hey, you owe me this for this, or hey, you owe me that for that.
And then sometimes like multiple it might be a few bills and a
But,
couple of
yeah.
dinners, and you're doing this adding and subtracting. It's like,
That's
okay,
where
here's
we're
$3.
at right now, and it's like, ugh. it
And
drives me nuts.
we were using Venmo for all that.
I
Is that what
see
you
your
guys
stuff.
do?
That's funny. No, I just usually pay him cash for my half of everything at the beginning of the month, and then pretty much from that we would split our groceries at the register. And then I feel like people judge you. They're like, you guys are buying groceries together, but you have to split it. I just think it's weird.
I
I
think
don't
that
know.
would have
It's
been-
like, that's so awkward.
Beneficial for us though, because there would be times where one of us would forget, or like sometimes it's kind of awkward. Like, hey, you owe me this
Yeah.
amount of money,
Nope, we both go in
Can
it with
you
the
know?
intention that we're splitting it, and you better bring your debit card to the,
I think that's
to
a
the
good
grocery
idea.
store.
Would you guys say that it's really important to live with somebody before you take your relationship to the next level and commit
Like
to them
marriage?
for like a long, like
yeah,
marriage
100%.
or
Yeah.
for sure.
When Nick and I first moved in together, it was really rough. We fought all the time. I was like, what the heck? This is so different. But I mean, it's obviously better now. But
And wasn't it weird because like you guys hung out all the time and you're with each other all the time,
it's still not the same as
and
actually
then something you're under the
living.
roof and all of
Right.
a sudden you're like crabbing at each other
It's-
for the smallest thing.
It's because you can't escape, and you're always with that person.
You don't get to go
True.
home at the end of the night. 'Cause
Exactly.
You're always with them.
Right.
Because you'll get sick of somebody and you'll be like, now I get a break. I get to go be away from them for a minute, and that helps your relationship in a way. But then whenever you're with somebody all the time, that can be rough.
And if oftentimes what's bothering you is that they're attacking your home space. Like maybe, I don't know, like how you like to watch TV and have food or whatever. Is you're relaxing at home. Maybe that's what they mess with. So not only can you not escape them, but they're the cause of why you don't have that comforting thing.
Yeah. The great thing about Jake and I is it's actually a downfall in a sense too, because he spends so much time upstairs in his man room. That at first I was like, this is so nice. Like I get the TV to myself, and I just get this whole bottom floor to myself. And now I'm like, I am so lonely. I have never felt this lonely, and I'm actually under the same roof as someone. And I have had, roommates before, but this is just like, come love me.
It's all a balancing act of
It is,
how
and
much
it's hard.
time you're spending with that person. It's like, are you giving them enough attention?
I'll
Not
come
enough
home,
Are you
though.
attention.
spending enough time apart?
Right. It's exactly. That's what I'm saying. It can go either way.
Yeah, I've told him, though, like, hey, you need to, like, give me at least a night or two a week where you don't go up there. And because I'll come home from work, he'll be up there, he'll come down to eat, and then he'll go back. And then I won't see him until he's ready to come to bed. And sometimes I just think that's a little silly.
So whenever you guys did start living with somebody else, did the place that you moved out of, whether that was your home or your previous roommate, did your relationship with that person change after you moved out?
Yes, I lived with my friend, and then I lived with my sister, and I think my relationships with both of them changed at the end of the time living together.
Yeah, so I went from living with my parents directly to living with my significant other and a friend as well. And when I lived with my parents, it was rough. Like, our relationship just wasn't as it should have been.
I wonder why that is. Is it because you're like a teenager?
I think it's because, you're starting to become like your own person, and you want to do your things your own way. And
your parents will have rules, and you're in their house, so you have to respect those rules.
Yeah, so now that I don't live there anymore, my relationship with my parents is like 100 times
my mom's
better.
like my best friend now. It's like if
I feel like I
have to talk to her every day.
Talk to them
I
more
have
than
to
I
see
did
her.
when I lived there.
Jake's always like, why do you go to your mom so much? I'm like, I haven't talked to her since like 4 p.m., okay? I need to go over there.
I find myself wanting to spend more time with my parents now that I
now
live
that
away
you're
from
out
home.
There.
Exactly. You're like, oh, I miss my parents and I should spend time with them. Like, that's a good thing.
My sister and I have a bad history of living together, and everybody even said, you're not going to be able to live with your sister. You're not going to be able to do it. I'm like, yeah, we're going to be positive about this. It's going to be great. She is like a really amazing cook, and it'll be great. And then when we lived at, each other, we only lived with each other for a few short months, and we were just at each other's throats all the time. And I'm just like, we gotta get out of here. Like, this isn't healthy for either one of us.
I kind of feel like that might be like a personality matchup. Like whenever you have two people that are like maybe too similar, or they have something in common and they just clash. It's like some people just can't live together, or it's not healthy.
Why do you think it worked though? Like when we all of our siblings lived together at the parents' house, but then
Oh, me and Felicia, we didn't work then
you
either.
guys.
Felicia actually moved out at a very young age. She lived in Arkansas and she lived in Kentucky, and during those times, like just having only to be able to talk to her via text or on the phone, that I grew a lot closer to her. And so when she moved back, I was like, oh well, it'll be fine, and it wasn't fine again being under the same roof, because I think we're just too different with things.
Okay, so you think you guys are more opposites?
I do.
Than similar.
What about for you, Nick? I know that we actually together lived with your sister for a while. How do you think that relationship went?
Yeah, kind of like you were saying, Amber, at the beginning, we're like, this is going to be positive.
Be
like,
great.
we can make this work.
They're one of your favorite people. How could it be bad?
And I don't know, like, for me, it almost was like going like bad in the background, because there's kind of that mask of like, it's your sister, so things are fine.
You were so
And then all of a sudden it was like one day, okay, things are way wrong.
Yeah.
And it was really hard.
Uh-huh.
But I feel like I was the same with my parents too when I moved out. My relationship got way better. So it's like sad as it is to say, like once you get beyond like that young age, like young children age and like older teenager and adults, it's like families should not be living together.
Do you think you could go back now if something were to ever happen? Do you think you could go back home comfortably now that you've been on your own for so long? Any of you?
I don't think I could. I still think that I do things differently than the way my parents want them, and just the way that they run their household compared to the way that like we run ours.
I think you come to a point where you have a certain amount of independence and you don't want to fall back on that, or it's hard if you do. I have moved back in with my parents before, and it's rough because it's like you're used to being out on your own and having all these freedoms and stuff, and then you live under the roof again, and it's difficult.
Well, it's like my parents' house. It's like a high traffic area all the time, and it's just like. My mom loves it. My mom loves the people, but I'm just like at some point like I don't know that I could constantly want to
Something like
have
that.
someone in my home.
I think the difference for me would be like I'm not in high school anymore, so like they wouldn't have as much control over me as they did, but
Control,
I would
yeah.
still have to like do things their way because it's their house and you have
You
to
think you'd
respect
still
that.
have chores if you went back?
I think yes, I would.
You'd have to help
Do you think
out.
they would
I
make you
mean-
pay rent? Do you think that your parents would make you pay rent
I don't know about paying
or
rent,
contribute some
but
like grocery money?
I would feel obligated to help.
think
I
would
would feel
too.
like a freeloader if you just moved in
Yeah.
and you weren't doing anything or pulling your own weight at least. So, Nick, you brought up something interesting, and I kind of wanted to ask you. Whenever you live with somebody you're so close to, like I've lived with a sibling as well, do you feel like you're partly afraid to hurt that person's feelings whenever it comes to something that is such a it's such a small thing and it's not really that big of a deal, but you're so close to them you just kind of go, it's not a big deal, I'll just push it off, and then those things add up.
Yeah, it's
And
kind of
eventually it just kind of builds to
it's
this
kind
point.
of like what I was saying
I
to
think that's
Amber.
the mask he was
Yeah,
talking
yeah,
about.
it's it's just my sister. Like this doesn't need to be discussed, and then 3 months later, you have this mountain of
You
issues.
harbor a lot of internal issues, and then one day you just explode. But then you look like the jackhold that just went off on your sibling.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's an adult thing because I don't know if I could live in a house full of 5 different adults who I'm not related to either. Just because like you were saying, at that point everyone has this independence and they don't want to lose that, and it's like you've got too many chiefs in the house. But yeah, I don't know.
So that being said, what age do you guys feel is appropriate to then move out of your parents' house?
Can we go around in a circle and say when we did?
When
Yeah.
we moved out, yeah.
When you moved out?
So I was 18.
I was 18.
I was 21.
I was also 18.
Okay.
Oh jeez, I feel like an old grandma.
No.
So for you, Dylan, was it moving out to campus dorm school, or did you go to somewhere else for that?
No, I went to a community college right out of high school, and we just got our own apartment. But I kind of moved out basically the very, very end of my senior year of high school. And it wasn't due to a bad relationship with my parents. My relationship with my parents was pretty good, but it was kind of this thing where I wanted my own independence. I wanted my own place, and I thought I was ready for that, and I just decided to move out.
So is that with friends, male friends?
With a significant other and a friend, I think at the time was
Okay.
the setup of the...
So did you feel any pressure to move out because you're going to college and that's what people do, or do you feel like it was more of your own self just wanting?
Probably both. I kind of felt like it was the right thing to do, and I wanted my independence.
Sometimes I think kids get ahead of themselves because they're in such a hurry to grow up. And then when you're out there and you're realizing nobody's cooking you dinner, no one's paying your bills, it's so strange having to learn how to do all this.
I think it also really depends on how your parents prepare you for life. Certain people have way more responsibilities at home whenever they're a kid, a teen, and then they're ready to transition to life. But there are some people who have everything done for them, and then whenever they move out on their own, it's a rude awakening.
They have no idea what to do.
They don't know what to do.
Like clean out the dryer vent.
Like clean out the dryer vent. Some people forget that.
Or even cooking. I think a lot of people
I
move
think
out
cooking is a big thing
and
for a lot of
it's
people.
okay, all I know how to make myself is a bowl of cereal and a grilled cheese. That's gonna get old real fast.
Do you
Can't
have
do that
passion
every
for cooking, any of you?
I like cooking.
enjoy
I
cooking.
love cooking.
Yeah.
You
Like,
are always I
I-
made this and I made that and I did this with an avocado.
Did this with
I
the
love
avocado.
avocado.
And I'm like, I hate it. To me, it's not fun. I don't like making up new recipes, and every time I do, I combine weird things.
I love cooking. I love it. It's just kind of a passion of mine. But more than that, I love cooking for other people too. I don't know. I'm kind of.
I love
kind
when
of
people like my food.
Yeah.
that's
Nick and I
always
went
so
to
nice.
a church event last night, and it was our Thanksgiving dinner, and I brought a couple things, and
Did you
mine.
make those potatoes?
I didn't. I made sweet potato casserole and
Ooh.
stuffing, and mine were my sweet potato casserole was all the way gone. I'm like, yes,
Does give
the
you a sense of
satisfaction when
victory.
people like that.
So Dylan, you mentioned you moved out at 18, and that was the consensus here, except for Amber. So what do you think about the age of moving out and how it's changed? And is there an appropriate age to move out, or is it okay to stay at home for a while?
I would say there's no particular age that you should move out. I think it's kind of a emotional maturity issue and your finances. So if you're in the right, if you know what you want to do and you're sure that's what you want to do and you have a good job and you're ready to do that and you're ready to go out and pay rent and pay for all those things that you need, go for it. But I think that it's trending older and older now. I think it's very, very common for people who are in their early 20s especially to be living with their parents. Would you guys say the same
Yeah, I would
thing?
agree.
Pretty much?
I know a lot of personal friends who that's the case.
So something that my dad had recommended was putting aside monthly rent every month and putting it into a savings account to see if I was truly prepared to go out on my own, if I was truly prepared to make that extra payment, and aside from, the extra groceries, that I would be supplying for my entire household rather than just myself. Was there any advice that your parents gave to you guys?
Financially, I think I was in a pretty good position, already. I already knew that before I moved out, I needed to have enough money saved and all that kind of stuff. But I think my parents did a really good job of, preparing me elsewhere in, areas of, cooking and cleaning and teaching me, just how to live,
I really like that, Amber. I think that's a smart thing to do because we're talking about, is there a right age? And Dylan said he doesn't think there is, but I kind of think that, I moved out at 18 and I would have, obviously everyone's circumstances are different. I was going away to school, so that was, what started it. But I actually switched schools, and then I lived back at home for, a little bit. But, once I got financially on my feet and, ready to move out, I went ahead and did that. I think I was still 18 when I moved out. And I do kind of think that it's, I don't want to, offend anyone, but wrong to, take advantage of your parents and just, it's great. If you don't have the finances and you're working on getting, on your feet so you can move out, that's one thing. But I think it's kind of wrong to just mooch off your parents until you're 25 and have a degree. Because not that your parents shouldn't afford you that luxury, but sometimes you gotta
They've
get pushed
done a
out the
good job,
nest.
yeah.
Yeah, they did their part. So your dad mentioned putting money back. Did you pay it to him or you just put it in your own
No, I
savings?
would, put it in my savings account, to where I would be ready. And then if something were to happen while I was out on my own, I had
still
all
have it.
that money in the savings account to fall back on.
See, I
When
think
you
if
move out, there are things that you just don't think about. Did you know that your season, cabinet doesn't come with all of the seasonings and you have to buy that on your own?
See, I think that was a good thing for him to do, but if not paying yourself, I think at the very least you should pay your parents, even if it's $200 a month, which you're not going to find rent like that anywhere. So that's honestly nothing.
Or just even helping out.
Yeah.
If you decide to
Yeah,
move back
chores
home.
and grocery
And pay
distribution.
pay for groceries or go grocery shopping, do something.
See, and I agree with you because I didn't say there was a particular age, but there is a point where you're mooching. At a certain point,
Yeah.
you've lived there so long and you're not paying rent, and oh my gosh, if you're not helping out and you have a job and you're an adult,
There's no
come
reason
on.
why you should still be there.
Yeah, exactly.
I also believe that at that point, though, your parents need to be pay rent or get out of my house. I feel they need to have that, little
Fortitude.
push.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
if they're allowing you to just stay in their house rent free and not contributing, then they're not really preparing you for society.
There
though,
are
are
some
they?
parents out there though that love their kids so much and they coddle them and they're like, I'll do whatever, stay here as long as you want. And that's not healthy either.
I'd like to think that I would be the parent that would push my kids, but none of us have kids
I don't
right
think
now,
I would
so we can't really.
I don't want to be get out of my house, but I would be okay, if you're gonna stay here,
Yeah,
there are a few
right.
things
Yeah.
even chores, you
Uh-huh.
stay here, you do chores, you don't have to pay for food or board, but you can help me, the
Exactly.
lawn and all of those things.
See, I think I would maybe charge rent, and even if I held on to all that and then gave it to them
When
back,
they're finally
just
ready.
I think you need to learn because there was things whenever I moved out, it was hard, but it was a learning process. I would eat cereal out of cups because I didn't like doing the dishes, and because I didn't do the dishes at home, that was Olivia's chore, and so I got out.
Disposable cups?
No,
Coffee
he would
cup,
have no
probably.
bowls
my
left, so
bowls
he
were
just-
dirty
Oh!
because all I'm eating is cereal. Because I was kind of I knew how to cook, but I think living on my own, then I started making other meals because I got tired of eating the same stuff. Yeah, I was eating cereal out of cups because my bowls were dirty, and then my cups were dirty, and I was like, crap, I guess I finally need to do the dishes. I didn't have a dishwasher in my first apartment. I was the dishwasher.
You were the dishwasher?
Yeah, it was terrible.
I grew up without a dishwasher, so I was the dishwasher. And that was really, really good for me, I feel like.
Yeah, that would be nice. I've
Yeah.
always had a dishwasher. It's definitely a luxury.
It really
I've
is.
got one.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you guys did to prepare yourself to go out on the world now? Jill and I, whenever we went into our first house, we bought things prior to moving out. we bought a lot of things, like down to dishes and silverware and pot holders, things that you don't think of, and we stored it until we were ready to go, and we didn't until we felt like we were able to get enough stuff to be out on our own.
Just for me, whenever I got my own apartment, I had like the bare necessities. Like I had dishes and a few things and a bed, like things you really have to have. Mm-hmm. And then kind of once I moved in, I kind of filled up my space with the things that I wanted. Furniture, I just kind of bought it as I went. How about you guys?
When I moved out at 18 for the first time, it was like a long day. Like I think I paid first and last month's rent at like 10 in the morning. And then we went shopping for some stuff I didn't have, like pots and dishes. And then, you know, I got a bite to eat out, and back to the store to get like other kind of stuff. Cause like I had nothing. It's like I had like whatever dorm stuff, which that's not really like living on your own kind of stuff. And then we brought the bed over. Like I'm pretty sure, I think the first time my bed, like, cause I just went in there the first day and my bed was just on the ground, like just a mattress on the floor. I had no table, no chairs.
So do you wish you would have done it differently? Do you think that was kind of like crazy? Like, did you not expect it to be that much money, or like?
Financially, it was a lot of money, but it was also a good learning experience. Like I woke up and I was like, I have like a lawn chair to sit in.
It makes you appreciate everything you
Right.
have so much more
It really
whenever you
does.
buy it on your own.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever you have to go out there and spend all that hard-earned money on furniture, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm just gonna sit on this, and I'm spending $300 on a couch. It's like,
Yeah.
whoa. And then you're like, now I really appreciate the things that I had when I was living with my parents.
That your parents provided for you
Oh,
on a
yeah.
constant basis.
For sure.
And I think that's kind of like the issue with staying at home. Like I think college moves a lot of people out, and if college is not for everyone, so if like you're not going to college and you're like working in your town, I think you should really be actively working to move out and be on your own. I don't know. That's my personal opinion.
So you guys all moved out, you know, at 18, and me a little bit older. But who'd you guys move out with? Who'd you go to?
Significant other for me, and
Okay.
then friends.
All together? In
Yeah,
one place?
I
That's how
had.
Nick and I were too. Kind of.
Wait, who
It was 3 total. It was me, my significant other, and another girl in the first apartment.
was it? Her friend?
Yes.
I don't remember this.
That was whenever I was 18, and then it was me and a friend of mine and my significant other. I've had 2 other roommates before, and then I've had just the one roommate. But
Dang.
whenever you're living with people who aren't part of your family, it's way different.
Different?
Yeah, for
I
sure.
think for me, like living with family, you're more likely to like be like, hey, don't do that. You know, like
You're more verbal and you're
Yeah.
more upfront and you're able to communicate
because
your true
it
feelings.
is your family and you've been
Mhm.
talking to them your whole life. You know,
Mhm.
and then for like to live with not your family, it's like you're kind of walking on eggshells more. You don't want to offend them. But
Did
at the same
everyone tell
time,
you guys
like,
not
need
to live with a friend before you moved in with a friend? Because that's all anyone told me is don't live with a friend, it'll ruin it.
Yeah.
Don't live with a friend, it'll ruin it.
And that's kind of going back to what you said about like you and Felicia living together. Like you were like, oh, it's gonna be great.
It's gonna
That's how
try
I
to be
was, too,
positive, and you're like, oh, I get to live with one of my best friends.
Whenever you spend that much time with somebody and you're friends beforehand, and then you move in together, at some point you're gonna get on each other's nerves, no
And
matter
you
what.
realize like the culture that you come from is so different, you
Yeah.
know, like the way that their household operates versus the way
Right.
that your household operated, and now you guys unconsciously bring those things to, you know, your new environment together, and just sometimes it does not work out.
And like another thing about like even living with significant others, like I would find myself more. It's easier to like tell Nick what he's doing wrong and what I think he's doing wrong. But,
And that's the other thing, like I have my opinion on how, I was in, my situation with my roommates, but they'll have their opinion, and then somewhere there's actually the truth of what truly happened. I have sensitivities to certain things. My old roommates had sensitivities to
And
certain
you always
things.
feel like your opinion is the right one.
Of course.
At the time. at
Yeah,
least.
but as you grow though, have you seen a little bit like maybe I did overreact in
Oh,
certain
yeah, for sure.
situations? I did too. Like I feel bad for, I'm just gonna say Jill. Hi Jill, if you're listening. Jill got me at a really rough time in my life. She got me when I was, fresh starting out in the world, and I was on cloud 9, and then she got me at some pretty low points in my life. And those low points reflected into my cleanliness, my willingness to help out. Some days I would just sit on the couch for days, because I didn't want to do anything, and then she picked up that slack. So just different things.
I've had roommates that have had bad habits before.
Ooh, bad habits.
Like, just one that comes to mind. I'm not gonna name names, but the person would chew their fingernails and then spit them. And I
That
like okay.
is not okay.
So for me, I'm just like, I was just appalled.
That's
and like,
disgusting.
and I was just like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you can't do that. That's not okay. And I guess nobody ever told them that like
That's just
wasn't
kinda gross.
all right. And I was just like, oh
Okay,
my gosh,
I
I
guess-
can't believe this is happening. Do you guys have any horror
Someone that
stories?
I lived with clipped their toenails and set it on the couch, and then at the end would collect said toenails and throw it in the trash. But I'm like,
Well, as long as they
You
collect
do
them.
I
Well,
do that.
as long as they like grab. I thought you were gonna say
I
they
don't
left
know.
them there.
I feel like whatever is on your toes does
It's
not
pretty
need to be
gross.
on my couch. Sit on the mother trucking floor and then clip your toenails. Okay.
Have you guys had any relationships ruined from living with a roommate?
I think Jill and I hit a very low point. Like we were just sick of each other by the end, and she left. But I think now, we're able to get back to a better friendship, rather than where we ended, But we also have a strange arrangement because we share dogs. So
Right.
we had got Duke and Rosie whenever we were living together. And neither one of us could imagine our lives without them. So it's like, what do we do? And it's literally a custody arrangement. We have them every other week.
I think it's really cool that you guys have been able to make that work.
Mm-hmm. And I almost like it in a sense because on the weeks that I don't have them, that's when I'm more social with people. Like tonight, the only reason why I'm here is because I don't have my dogs.
It's kind of like you found a babysitter for your kids. in a
Yeah,
way.
it's so strange. And it's
Yeah.
like I get everything done on the weeks that I don't have them, and then I'm more of a homebody whenever I do have them. But yeah, there was definitely a point in my life where I'm like, I didn't even want to acknowledge her as a person. As sad as that sounds.
Whenever things go bad and you're living with somebody, it's the worst case scenario because you can't get away from them and you get tired of somebody and it's just like,
I think
where
though,
do I go? What do I do?
we made it 6 years before things started to go bad.
That's
and
impressive.
That's incredible for me to even sit here and think of, like 6 years,
Being a roommate with one person and not ripping each other's head off.
No,
Yeah.
and we like
That's good.
where I lacked in something, she excelled in something, and where she excelled in or lacked in something, I excelled in something, and like she actually worked 2 jobs for a while, and that got really stressful for her, but it got really stressful for me at home because I felt like I was, picking up all the slack at home. So it was just, but I can't imagine working 2 jobs,
Right. Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I was not perfect by any means as a roommate during that time though.
I think my problem, like for me and my roommate, was like we both had issues with each other that were never talked about. So then,
That makes it hard too when there's no communication.
right. So towards the end, it just kind of all blew up, and that was it.
So
There was no.
What do you guys
communication
think about, like when I moved out for the first time, I was on my own for 3.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for 3 years, like I lived by myself. So like
Did you really?
I really did. So I think for me, part of like that like annoying stuff, like even about yourself, where you're still figuring out who you are as a person and like how you're living. Like I didn't dump that on anyone else. By the time I finally had roommates, like I had been living away from my parents for 3 years, and I feel like you kind of confound the issue when you move out at 18 with someone else who's just moving out at 18. It's like it's almost a recipe for disaster to some degree.
So for me, I did basically the exact opposite. I lived with roommates ever
same.
since I moved out, and now I'm 25 and I'm finally have my own place, and it's kind of like, oh, this is completely different.
Do you feel like it was beneficial for you to like live with other people first and then live on your own, or Nick, do you feel like it was? helpful
I
for
do
you
think it was beneficial for me to live on my own
to get
because
your own style. of
I got
life,
my own
maybe?
style, and I just like, because when 2 people are figuring out how to pay 2 people who maybe aren't, a lot of times it's like your friend or it's a significant other, but if you're not like in a committed, like, maybe someday we're going to get married, like kind of relationship, and you're like working out like finances ruin marriages, let alone a friendship. And so I think for me it was nice to like, I learned for 3 years how to put money back and pay for bills by myself and make decisions that would make the cost of living less, like not wasting groceries and turning electrical things off. Like when the time I had roommates, I had conquered all those personal battles. So I think for me it did help.
I think your scenario was probably better. The fact that you lived on your own first and you didn't have another roommate, you probably had so much more growth than somebody who could still lean on somebody else as a crutch.
At that point though, would you have taken in a roommate who wasn't your significant other?
Yeah, I would have actually.
Your sister.
Or my sister, yeah.
Oh,
I
sorry.
had thought about
I mean, like, we can take her.
living with Drew. And so I wasn't opposed after 3 years to live with someone who wasn't, but it just so turned out that I lived by myself, and then I lived with my significant other and my sister again.
Would you live with a roommate ever again who wasn't your significant other?
For me, I wouldn't, because I'm in the financial situation where I don't have to, and I just feel like it would be kind of pointless
I've
for me to
never
live
lived
with
on my own. I've never just
I
flew
think that
solo.
for a lot of
Have
people,
you?
I have not. No, I have not, and
Could you?
I won't. I mean,
No, you won't.
Okay, so I just want to ask Nick this, because I've had people ask me, and they say, "Oh, you live on your own and you have your own apartment." It's like, aren't you lonely? Like, how did you feel? Did you feel like you were
Didn't you guys date that
alone?
entire
we were
duration,
dating,
though?
but
Okay.
like I was also like younger at the time, and
So you had
I couldn't.
rules.
Yeah, I couldn't. just be
I
there whenever
didn't
I
feel
wanted to.
lonely, no, because I was 18. I was like, wow, I can literally make my own decisions. Like, I didn't. Like, I think you mentioned before, like, you're not just sitting here staring at the walls. Like,
No.
you go,
Exactly.
you go do stuff.
People ask me that, they're like, "What do you do?" And it's like, well, for one thing, I'm not
What do you do
here
when
the
you're at home?
majority
Like,
of my time.
yeah.
But whenever you're at home, it's like, that's a couple hours out of the day before you go to bed, and you just
Right.
want to relax,
Yeah.
and sometimes you just want to be alone.
Mm-hmm.
It's
I
pretty,
think that I
pretty
would
great.
struggle with that living alone though, especially if I didn't have like my animals. Like now, even
The
when Nick's not
animal
home
thing.
for like a long period of time, like they're there and I talk to them. You know.
Yeah.
No, I do remember feeling like that. It wasn't like so much bored, but there was like kind of a feeling of, like, I remember it was kind of weird when I first got my washer and dryer, and like I started like my first load, and then I closed the laundry room door, and I was like, okay, it kind of sounds like there's like life in this house other than me, and like that was cool. And then Cleo was our first cat, and like because there'd be times even though I lived with two people, it was just me at home. I was like, I need something else alive in this house. And it wasn't a boredom thing. It was like, I don't know. It was kind of weird.
See, I have neighbors that are so loud. It's like I have people living upstairs and on the other side of me, so I don't really have that issue. There's constantly people making noise.
When Jake and I were just, early dating, he lived in an apartment and he lived on the bottom floor. And I never have lived in an apartment, but dear Lord, props to anyone who is able to actually do that. Jill and I were grateful enough to live in a house, and we had amazing landlords, but Jake lived in this apartment, and it was a nice apartment, and as is yours, Dylan, but the fact that he was squished and there were people everywhere all the time. And I'm just like, good night.
So that reminded me of a story. All right, so whenever I moved to Missouri State, I went to Missouri State University, we had an apartment complex, and it was basically all college kids. Mm-hmm. And we had people below us, and we had people above us. Well, me and my friend, we moved in, and we lived there for probably 2 months or 3 months before we knew who lived above us. But all we knew is that they were the loudest people in the entire world. It sounded like they were dropping bowling balls on the floor and marching across the floor with boots on and stuff. And we're like, those gotta be I don't know, football players or some big dudes. What is the deal? Okay, so one day we finally went up there and we saw who was walking in. Tiny, petite Asian girls. And I'm like, there's no way.
What were they
I was like,
doing?
how are they making that much noise? It's impossible. I was like, are they clonking her along with high heels on or something like that? And this is kind of sad, but I'll just say it because we're on the topic of roommates and stuff. So there was one day where I was just in my room, and it was 3 a.m. and I'm dead asleep, and all of a sudden I wake up, and this is kind of sad, but the girls above us were just there was 2 of them that were just crying. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they've hit a wall. College is definitely getting to them. So whenever you live with people who live around you, it's always rough. And that's definitely a downside to renting, for sure.
So let's talk about that, renting versus owning, apartments versus living in a house.
Mm-hmm. So I rented a house, and I was incredibly thankful, and I probably had the world's best landlords. And, we had septic issues, and they actually eventually took care of that. They replaced our roof after a storm, anything, that was going on, we just gave them a call, and they would come to our rescue, and it was just the most incredible. I cannot think of better people to rent a home from.
So you think if you were buying in that situation, you would have had to have paid for all that stuff out of pocket?
Yeah, because it was the storm that damaged the roof. That's not something that, they just did, we need a new roof. It had to be fixed, and, they fixed it right away.
So that's a pro.
That's definitely a pro of renting.
And then the septic system, our basement flooded. The very first time that ever flooded, we had actually stored a ton of stuff down there, so we lost a ton of stuff. And then it was just like whenever it would rain heavily, we knew that there was going to be a flood in the basement. And at that point, they're like, okay, we really need to. And what happened was, living on the street that we lived on, tree roots just consumed the pipes there. And every house on that street has it. So it's like it was only a matter of time. So they dug up the entire septic system, replaced the pipes, and it was immaculate after that.
So, Nick and Corinne, you guys just recently, this year.
Bought a house.
This year, you guys bought a house. So, what are kind of the pros and the cons of owning your own home?
So one thing I would first like to talk about. The cat that we got initially, she was illegal. I called her Anne Frank because
we weren't supposed to have animals in our
supposed to have
apartment.
animals.
Oh, I was like, how is this cat illegal?
No, yeah,
I get it.
Yeah.
Anne Frank, that's funny.
Well, it was crazy, and I almost feel terrible.
So we
doing
had
this
problems
to
in
her.
our apartment too. So like the maintenance crew would have to come over and we'd have to hide her.
So
You know,
you had to hide
'cause
your
we
cat.
had to hide her food,
Hide
the
Anne
litter
Frank.
box, everything.
And it got to the
You
point.
think she wrote about it?
It got to the point though where like, let's say Dylan, you were coming over. If Cleo heard the door open and like knew that
Or a
it
knock
wasn't,
on the
or
door.
a knock on the door, she like
She knew to
hid.
hide?
She knew to hide.
Oh my gosh.
It was insane. So it's nice. Like we have a dog and cat, and it's like
and we don't
it's
have to have
fine that
permission.
they're there.
We don't have to pay extra.
Right. Other pros. Like having a yard is nice. Like it never really occurred to me, but like
How
whenever,
nice it is to actually have a yard.
yeah, because when we had the apartment, I was just like,
We had a balcony. And it was
we had a
very small,
balcony,
so
but we're
was
stuck
all we had.
inside all the time.
Do you guys have a fenced-in property?
we don't. No,
No,
not
not
yet.
Have you ever thought about doing that for
Yeah,
your dogs?
That's
That-
the plan.
We're working
Is a
on it.
feature of Jake and I's house that is probably my favorite
Yeah.
thing. Is just being able to just push the door right open
And let
watch them
out.
all run out, and it's just like I don't have to chase that anymore. It's so
Right.
lovely.
See, that's the thing though about owning is when you need you see changes like that would be beneficial. Like once we had the money, we could make them, and if we wanted to decorate or front, like you have that freedom.
You can do whatever you want
it makes
because it's
it feel like
yours.
it's yours. However, our oven just recently went out.
So our landlord isn't going to come over and fix that. We have to actually.
Drop
have
some money.
Dip
a
into the
smell
pockets and get it.
Yeah.
We gotta fix the
radiating
bathroom.
from the basement, and it's like there's an obvious pipe issue down there, and it's just like, well, we own this home now, so it's our responsibility. It's like, at what point do we not want to smell it anymore?
Right. And you kind of like
Take
you
care of
have
that.
this like test system where it's like how big of a problem, how long can I stand it?
How long is it before it's actually truly damaging to my
Mm-hmm.
property value? You think about property values now.
Yeah.
And when we first moved in, both sides of our neighbors, they took amazing care of their lawns. They both had like these beautiful gardens. Well, unfortunately, one neighbor moved out and another one has, since replaced that gentleman, and they don't take care of their property at all. And sometimes even when the windows are open, unfortunately, there's like a strong cat pee smell that radiates from their home. And I think it's because they have so many cats. One cat actually poked through the screen and was like hanging one day. I think it was truly just sunbathing, but I will never know. But it's just like now as a homeowner, I'm like, if I want to sell my house now, the neighbors and like their entire long driveway is lined with just boards and woods of junk. And it's like if I ever want to sell my home, that's going to be what people see
Right.
coming to look at my house. And it's like, what does that do to my property value?
I will say though, another pro for us is when we lived in an apartment together, we lived in Baldwin. So I mean, it was like West County, St. Louis, an expensive area, anyways.
Nice area.
But I still think that the cost of owning
We're paying
overall,
half in mortgage
is
of
less.
what we were in rent.
It was a little bit up front because we had to do some you got put money down or home repairs like when you first move in. But now that we've kind of, we're at this maintenance level. We've cut our expenses in half, and honestly, we're working less, and we're able to do that because our expenses are half.
See, and the reason that I chose this apartment was because of the town it's in and how cheap the rent is here. It's basically the cheapest you can get, and the apartment's in pretty good condition.
This
And
is a
it's-
really nice
I mean,
apartment.
it's a pretty nice apartment. Shout out to Birdsong Apartments. Give me a sponsor, please. Reduce my rent. Whatever you need to do. Shameless plug.
Some other stuff we were talking about earlier, though, about apartments is like noises and stuff that you were hearing.
Oh, that's just...
I was telling them. Did I tell this off mic? Did I tell you the story about my neighbor and how her kid was screaming at night?
Yeah.
Okay, so just like the little things, like obviously I don't have to get up super early in the morning, but it was kind of later at night, and I was like, man, if I had to get up really early and I had a neighbor whose kid was screaming and like keeping me awake, like that's such a hindrance,
Well, not
It's
to
like
mention, like, are they responsible? Because if they burn their house down, you know, since you're attached to their wall, you know, like, you have to think about those things when you have an apartment, and just like...
I never thought about that until now.
Well,
that I'm attached to two other people, and if they burn their apartment down...
Dylan, here's another thing. You don't know how clean they are.
Bugs.
Bed bugs.
Oh,
Cockroaches, because their dishes are piled up on the sink.
When I would go to Jake's house, his apartment, I would just be like, you know, that person is not making, you know, proper life choices. And like, I'm like, are they cooking meth in there? Because if that blows, we're going to die. Like, that's just how it's going to be.
Yeah, a problem for us in our apartment was, like, our neighbors were kind of into, you know, drugs, and that smell would come into our apartment. So when our family would come over, I'm like, it's not us.
We're
you know?
I think renting can be beneficial, and it's a good learning experience, but I think definitely not everyone can do it initially, but at the end of the day, owning, because then, like, your rent payments that you give to a landlord, like, that's gone. Like, once you pay that, you have no, but like what we dump into our house.
how much rent I paid over the 7 years that I lived in that house versus like if I would have just either stayed home and, you know, set that money to the side, or could be paying on my own home, I would be 7 years into being a homeowner right now. But at the same time, there were some huge expenses, like especially with the septic, that I would never have been able to financially afford that they were able to do.
And that's a lot of reason why people rent, you know.
And it was nice. It was a nice luxury. So we've just spent quite a bit of time talking about, you know, where we've been, but I want to know where you guys see yourselves living, your situation in like 5 years.
Do you want to go first?
No.
Well,
Okay.
Dylan wants to go last.
He called last.
So I will talk first. I hope to still be in the house that we just bought not too long ago, like 5 months ago.
Yeah.
I hope it's completed because we did a lot of construction at the beginning.
Renovating, right?
Yeah.
Didn't you guys do something with the floors in the kitchen?
We did a lot.
redid almost all the floors, wood floors, kitchen floors.
You have an old house like I do, right?
Yeah.
1930s.
So we're
Mine's
still
the 20s.
we're still missing some trim and some furniture just to fill in everything. So I hope that I will be there.
Is that your forever home?
No.
Just a starter?
I want to have like one kid there, but he doesn't want to have any kids there.
I'm not totally opposed, but like the only other bedroom is upstairs, and
that's not unusual, is it?
Well, in my situation, I have 2 rooms upstairs, and then our room is downstairs. So
That's
I would have
that's
to
how it
put
is
a
for us.
child.
Yeah,
either
that's
we
what I'm
would
saying.
both have to be upstairs, which we could, but then
Yeah.
that means taking away Jake's precious. So I don't know if that's actually going to be a thing. We'll see. I'll let you know.
Yeah, it would just scare me to have.
And I would hope to be a nurse by then, graduated.
Yeah.
If I make it. We'll see if I make it.
Don't. You're going to make it. I just know you are.
What about you, Nick? How do you feel?
So,
Where are you going to be in 5 years? That's where she's going to be.
Ideally, our 5-year plans is semi-similar, and hopefully we're in the same spot. I would agree that by 5 years we'll probably still be there. Majority of renovations like done. Like, I hope at that point there's no like new big project, but who knows? Maybe a child in the upstairs bedroom. I don't know, but
Do you guys have basement potential?
Basement
No.
potential? No.
Not at all.
I mean, it's not a complete disaster. Like it's
really
but you
small,
couldn't add it on as living space, but it's good storage space and stuff like that.
So for me, whenever I think about my 5-year plan, I don't know if you guys do this, but do you ever think about like what your parents were doing at a certain age?
All the time. My dad had his first kid when he was 19, and I'm already past
Right.
that. So
I kind of look at where my parents were, and I kind of use that as a benchmark for where I should be in my life. And that kind of freaks me out because I'm 25 and I'm single and I live on my own. And it's like, okay, my dad had me when he was 27, and it's like, should I like be getting married really soon and having a kid? Like, I don't know. Like I feel like I should. Like I feel like it's something
though,
that I should.
Every story is different, and you shouldn't base yours around your parents.
True.
I think with
I
everything
feel-
that we've talked about tonight, it's all person dependent and
Yeah,
how they are.
and when you find that Mrs. Right, and if anyone is listening who would like to submit their application to be Dylan's girlfriend,
If you'd like to send us an email, you can reach us at opendiscourse.od@gmail.com. Let me know. Get that out there. No, I'm just kidding. But I don't know. All right.
I feel like in 5 years, we will still be in the same home. I want to make that into definitely something that we can grow old into. That's what our intentions were when we
So that
bought
is
the
your
house.
forever home?
That's what we want.
Yeah.
I don't want to go anywhere else.
You-
That being said, I do want to do a lot of different things. Like the house is renovated, but the renovations aren't exactly my style. So there are things that I would like to change. And the neighbors have an identical house to us, and they have completely gutted their basement and turned that into like a man cave. And so I would, that's something that Jake and I are definitely interested in doing. But it is an older basement, so that would take a lot of money. So just something to think about. But I definitely want to grow old in my favorite house.
That's awesome. You have a really cute house.
Thank you. I try really hard.
All right, so is that pretty well it for episode 6?
I feel like we've covered it.
All
It
right.
was a pretty good one.
I think we've incorporated something newish on every episode. So I hope the multiple guest hosts went over well with you guys. Dylan gave the email plug earlier, but I think he said it wrong. So
I did. It's open discourse. Wait, no. open.discoursod@gmail.com. So if you guys have any questions or any concerns or anything, comments, shoot us an email. Let us know what you think. Ask us some questions. We'd love to get back to you.
Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, totally.
This has been my first time ever on a podcast. And
Me too.
It was different, but I liked it.
It
You
was
guys did a really
awesome.
good job.
Did you guys have fun?
I did, surprisingly, and it was more just engaging in a good conversation with people that I
think
love.
it definitely, our topic particularly definitely fit the open discourse.
Yeah.
And this is, again, I say this almost every week, this is the goal of this podcast, to have conversations with friends and family and just...
I really have to stop telling people it's called open disclosure.
That sounds like a different.
I just can't help it. I don't know. It just flows off my tongue better. Sorry.
Open discourse.
Open discourse. I got it.
No, totally. I think this might have been a good breather as compared to last week's episode.
Some of your heated topics.
It could have potentially angered some people, but I'm open to talk about anything.
Mm-hmm.
And that's good, though, that you guys are young but passionate about things. And I love seeing that with the younger generations. Like, you don't have people who just care anymore, but that's why I love this podcast. You guys aren't afraid to put yourselves out there in a very vulnerable state.
It's hard whenever you have to tell the truth and you have to say things that you're afraid of people's perceptions
Especially
of you.
our own family members, in a sense. It's like some of your political views differ, or the fact that some of you have, all of us in a sense, have faded from the Catholic lifestyle.
upbringing.
The politics and the religion podcast were particularly hard whenever it came to people in our family.
I bet that was not easy.
I got some backlash from.
I'm sure that you did.
Some people.
But I think it's important, and I think it's cool, like Drew was saying in the message he left last week. If this is, it's cool if this is an entertainment thing for you guys, something you listen to weekly, but if it can go a step beyond that and start conversations and...
Get people's minds, wondering, for people who are, in the middle of politics, you have to choose one day, I guess, I guess you don't have to, but to see where our country is headed, to be a part of that role, it's nice to know other people's thoughts and opinions, I guess. You guys bring up some really good things that some people don't always think about. So I like that.
That's our goal.
People can potentially get offended, but I think ultimately having open discourse can only make things better.
I think, though, it's a lot of people get easily offended, and it's whatever happened to we can agree to disagree in a respectful manner. It's you can, worship whoever you want, but as a Christian, I'm going to respect you. You can love whoever you want, but as a Christian, I'm going to support you,
Yeah, the agree to disagree is a cliche, but it worked last week.
Yep,
Erica and I were able to go forward.
I say that to Jake more often than not. We're going to have to agree to disagree on this, because I'm not going to sit here and dwell on something that I can't change. His mind is made up, and so is mine. But at the end of the day, we still love each other,
Right. All right, guys, we hope you enjoyed the conversation this week. Anything else to say?
I don't really have anything else. Thanks for listening. Again, email us, open.discoursod@gmail.com. Let us know what you think.
Participate in the polls, make comments, and we'll see you guys next week.
Thanks, guys.